Welcome to the Freedom Chronicles.
Definitely an antisocial type.
Only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
We got a loudspeaker here, and when we go into battle, we play music very loud.
With a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Chronicles. I'm your host, Mike Imbasciani. We are, of course, broadcasting from the Brian Chapman State Farm bunker right here in Southwest Florida. And like a good neighbor, Brian Chapman State Farm is there for all of the insurance needs that you have for your very own bunker. Give us office a call at 941-625-9998 or visit the office at 2040 Tamiami Trail in Port Charlotte. Now, I want to thank you all, everybody, for being a viewer. And if you're the first time watching the show, thank you. Share it with your friends. We have basically quite a celebration today. This is the 100th episode of the Freedom Chronicles. So thank you for being a part of the Freedom Chronicles, continuing to share it around with your friends. It's how you get the word out. And it's because of you guys we can do this show. So if you really enjoy this show, join the locals community. It helps us out. Yes, we have Brian Chapman State Farm that helps us out as well, but really we need your help as well. You can join the locals community, just $5 a month, and it helps catapult this show into bigger and better things as well. And just subscribe. Subscribing helps. We got to get through that algorithm, which just sucks. So subscribe on Rumble. If you're watching on YouTube, before they take the episodes down, subscribe on YouTube and then take it over to Rumble, take it over to BitChute, take it over to Brighteon, wherever, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening or watching, subscribe.
You're getting pretty good at this.
Helps us out. I'm trying. Hey, 100 episodes, we should be.
We're going to stick you on one of those NPR.
Exactly. And today, of course, Ken Lovejoy is with us. And today, you know, we have the breaking news. We finally have a Speaker of the House. We finally have a Speaker of the House.
Some guy you've never heard of, but he's supposedly pretty good, and he's from Louisiana.
Picture number 4, real quick. Mike Johnson is the new Speaker of the House. We're going to dive into all of that, but also on this show, we try to bring you some of the greatest guests that we can, and today's guest is a fantastic guest as well. Her husband, Ronald Colton McAbee, has just been convicted on 5 charges, due to January 6th. He spent 2.5 years essentially in this DC gulag before getting a trial. And unfortunately, he has been convicted. But we want to hear the story and understand everything and bring to you just what is going on, because people need to talk about it and it needs to be shared around. That's why we do this show. That's why we're 100 episodes in. And there are times we can be happy, we can be sad, we can joke about what's going on. But we're 100 episodes in of this show. And it's about the understanding that we were born in the time that we're in. That's a good quote I've been hearing lately. And so you have to use the time that you're in to be positive, to push forward, and to fight ahead, because that's how you keep liberty. It took Matt Gaetz stepping up to get rid of McCarthy as Speaker and the quote-unquote chaos that we've been dealing with, having no Speaker for a couple weeks. You know what? The world didn't end.
What do you mean chaos? It
wasn't chaos.
Nothing got done. It was great.
Exactly. No money was spent where it shouldn't have been spent. And now we have a Speaker. And now we need to see that action. And one of the first things, and this goes into our great guest, Sarah McAbee, that we have with us today, we need those January 6th tapes released. So please welcome our guest,
Where's the promise?
Sarah McAbee.
That was the biggest promise, in my opinion.
Yes. Sarah, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. So kind of Colton has kind of been labeled as the sheriff of January 6th, right? We have a picture, picture number 12. We have a picture of him going into the Capitol when it happened. And of course, Roseanne Boyland was around him. And basically, he was trying to protect her as well from before she was beaten to death. Mm-hmm. Kind of give us, how did he end up being there that day and kind of what has transpired since?
Yeah, so he of course, wanted to go and hear President Trump speak, and that's his First Amendment right. I don't believe that he knew things were going to be as crazy as they were that day. And I think if he knew what the outcome would have been, I don't think he would have ever gone. But we have the Constitution and our rights as Americans, and for him to go along with the American people to air their grievances about the 2020 election. And ultimately, he really thought this was going to be the last time that he heard Trump speak as president. And it was his friend that invited him to go. And he told me what had happened on January 6th when he was walking away from the scene, going back to the hotel. He called me, and his story hasn't changed from that day, January 6th, 2021, to today, and even through trial. His story is just, it's not very different from a lot of January 6 defendants, but it is different in the aspect that he was an off-duty police officer who went to assist an officer that was on the ground and tried to save Roseanne Boylan's life. All of this was brought out during trial. He was on a case of 9 people originally. He was the only one to take it all the way to trial. And the reason he did that was because he wanted the people to know about Roseanne Boylan and the controversy that surrounded her death. And so they actually the government admitted evidence of Lila beating Roseanne into the court. It was submitted into court, and those 14 jurors that sat in that jury pool had no idea that another person had died that day. And that was his ultimate goal, right? He says, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, at some point, I'm going to come home. But Ashley Babbitt, Roseanne Boylan, Kevin Greason, and Benjamin Phillips are never coming home from that dreadful day for that family. And that's what we need, is we need justice. We need these tapes released because there are so many American families that have been affected by this. Never in the history of America have you heard the government literally holding on to this like it's their last straw, continuing to persecute people in the way. And then the defendants are the ones saying, release all the evidence. We have nothing to hide. Bring us into Congress and let us testify under oath. You never hear of that because they don't have anything to hide. The police waged war on the American people that day.
Oh, without question.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, you have basically 2.5 years. The trial just ended. He just got convicted. So talk about, I read an article as well. It said he wasn't arrested until August of 2021 either. So
yeah, they've been taking their time. Supposedly there's several more that they're going after as well.
Yeah, so actually in the last omnibus bill that the Congress passed, they allotted another $300 million to prosecute people for January 6th. So there is going to be a whole nother wave of January 6th defendants, and they're just, doing everything they can to destroy these people's lives. Yeah, he came home on January 7th, went back to a normal life. And we knew at the end of the month that he was on the FBI wanted list because the friend that he went with called and said, hey, just so you know, we're on this list. And in March, his buddy, his name's Mike Roberts, his work came to him and said, hey, listen, you either turn yourself in or we have to turn you in. So he got an attorney and he went to the FBI field office in East Tennessee, and they didn't have anything. And so they were like, we'll call you, if we have something. We don't have anything right now. And that was March of 2021. And then in May 26, 2021, somebody tipped them off of who Colt was, and they started following us. So for about 90 days, they knew who this man was, but they never picked him up on a traffic violation. They decided to take him at work. They didn't even take him at our house. They apprehended him when he pulled into his workplace. And they had tried to say, he's a danger to the community. And that's the thing that when we were in our initial bond hearing in the Middle District of Tennessee, the federal judge wouldn't let the government get away with the tactics that they were trying to do, saying that he was a danger to the community because he had a stellar 27 years of life, no issues with that in regards to a criminal record or anything. He was a law enforcement officer for 7 years at that point, had a stellar record, upstanding pillar in the community. And so the judge was like, no, he can be released on bond pending trial. Well, the government didn't like that, so they appealed it, and it went to the District of D.C., and that's where his case has been ever since then, where it's a staggering 99.6 conviction rate right now for January 6 defendants.
Yeah, of course.
The DC Railroad.
And they're trying to say he's a danger. He's a police officer. That's the thing. I mean, we've interviewed David Morshell, who is actually from our area of Southwest Florida here, who was an oath keeper for 20 days total. And was convicted and has unfortunately been sentenced to 3 years. And he was there as a medic. He's there to try to help people. Your husband was there trying to help people as an off-duty police officer, saying, look, you have to be safe. Everybody has the right to go out and protest. As we just saw, due to what's happening with Israel and Palestine, you have picture number 17, the mostly peaceful protest that just happened in D.C. You want to call something an insurrection, there you go.
Rashida Tlaib's bust in Hamas supporters?
Yeah, exactly. The bust in. And, you know, if one thing's an insurrection, then the other has to be an insurrection. Where are all the arrests for them?
No, not anymore.
Right, of course.
That's not the way it works anymore. We're communists.
It's definitely rules for thee and not for me, right? I mean, people want to forget. They forget, you know, going back all the way to the 2016 election where, you know, they overtook Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day, what they called J20 in 2017. They forget about the Summer of Love. They forget about the Kavanaugh hearings and how people stormed the Capitol then. But they want to compare January 6th to something like Pearl Harbor and 9/11, when that is an insult to any person that served in the military, lost a loved one in either of those incidences. And now you're trying to say that January 6th, when they keep pushing that 140 officers were injured that day and 5 police officers died. No, the only people that died that day were Trump supporters that were there, 2 being women, 2 being men. And we can argue back and forth in regards to the other 2 deaths about, was it natural causes, was it induced? But we need true answers. We need an investigation. Pardons would be great for the next administration to come in and give these people pardons so they can move on with their life. But that's not even what they want. I've never heard a January 6th defendant ask for a pardon because they want their day, a true day in court, to be exonerated on the charges that have been brought against them. But they want an investigation into that day to make sure that something like this never happens again.
Indeed.
Yeah, and hopefully with the new speaker, they release the rest of the January 6th tapes, and
they're going to have to find a way to move the venue.
Yeah.
You know? Because you're never going to get a fair trial in D.C.
No.
I mean, Scott has pretty much shown us that.
Yep.
Well,
and so talk about, and the other thing is, you know, you're supposed to be guaranteed a speedy trial, and Colton was not given that. I mean, what, 2.5 years inside of basically the DC gulag for what? Did they ever give a reason, or just what was the story behind that?
I truly believe he was held because he was a witness to a murder that day, and they did not want him talking about what happened between Lila Morris and Roseanne, because he watched the entire thing go down. He tried to save her life. And so he was witness to a murder that happened at the Capitol, which clearly is a federal crime, and these people are walking free. You know, Michael Byrd gets protected for 9 months and raises an umpteen amount of money. Lila Morris gets to go to the Super Bowl and be praised for protecting democracy that day. And yet these people are murderers. They are criminals that are being praised by our government. And I truly believe that was one of the main reasons he was held, is because what he witnessed that day. And it doesn't make sense. There is no rhyme or reason on who gets detained and who doesn't get detained, who gets a speedy trial, who doesn't get a speedy trial, who gets a plea deal, who doesn't get a plea deal. The rules, even within the January 6th community itself, is just so astonishing what they're willing to do for some people, but then not other people. You know, even in our trial, it lasted a total of 7 days. And at the very end, in closing arguments, the prosecution is agreeing. After they fought for 7 days, they fought saying he wasn't helping a police officer, that he was yelling obscene things at them, and he had assaulted them. And in closing arguments, they literally said, well, maybe he was helping the police officer. Maybe he did tell them that he was assisting them. And maybe he did see a woman's dead body there that could have started this entire thing. And that's what they're saying in closing arguments. But this jury, these people of 14, 12 of them decide their minds are already made up because they are judged by a day on a calendar rather than their actions that day. If they merely moved the court system to Alexandria somewhere, and even Northern Virginia, it would go down to a 60% conviction rate rather than a 99%. And I think maybe some eyes are starting to be open, because I did hear, I believe it was last week, that there was a judge that asked the prosecution, hey, the Department of Justice usually only has about a 60% conviction rate with trials. Why is it at 99% for January 6 cases? So even some of these judges seem to start realizing, hey, something is not right. Even it doesn't matter what aisle you sit on, something is not right here.
Well, you would think that, well, it must be the judges that are getting these cases, because you can't tell me the judge can't look at this case and see it's a total sham
Of
from the
course.
beginning.
Well, and you have to go back. I mean, we interviewed not only David Morshell, but his attorney, Scott Weinberg, and just talking about the whole trial, all of it, and where, when they're looking for the jury, and they all say
all Democrats.
They're all asked the question, "Can you be non-biased?" And they say no, and the judge goes, "Well, but do you think for me, could you be just not biased once?" And okay, I guess so. No, it's not how it works, but it's the kangaroo court tactics that we've entered as a country.
Sadly, the rule of law has ended in the United States of America, the way that we used to know it and the way that it was constituted.
So, Sarah, what do you want to see? I mean, tell us now about the realj6.com and what you're trying to really bring awareness to, and how people can help and move forward with the people who are still without a trial even.
Yeah, so there's 192 people that are incarcerated for January 6th, whether that's serving their time, awaiting trial, plea deal, whatever that might look like for them. And there's 1,200 individuals that have been affected by January 6th as a whole. So 1,200 different families across America. There's been a January 6th defendant in every state at this point. And I think we need to rally around them. We started the Real J6 after my husband was assaulted in the DC jail in September of 2022 for not wearing a mask while taking oral medication. And so we put a call to action out to call the U.S. Marshal's office and say, hey, listen, like, the abuse here has to stop. Like, he wasn't doing anything wrong. It's all on body camera footage. The lieutenant that did it wasn't even supposed to be in there. And so there was a massive call to action to the Patriots to say, we need to start calling and demanding some answers. And so through that, we realized there was a need for the January 6th community to get their stories out, to get what was happening in these facilities. And it's very interesting because not too long ago in the summer, there was an incident where they had to move some of the guys out of what we call the Patriot Pod, and they put them in general population while there's a brief investigation going on. And when they did that, the general population was begging them to get their stories out about how they were being treated, how it was, there was no AC in there in the middle of summer. The food they were getting, there was rats and cockroaches and bugs, bed bugs, just really disgusting things. And so it was very eye-opening that the general public on the other side is realizing that these people have a platform to use to make their voices heard as well. And so through the Real J6, we basically just wanted to give a voice to the voiceless. And then in January of 2023, 2 years later, they still had no visitation, didn't even have video visits. So they couldn't even see their loved ones or their children for 2 years. And Congressman Troy Nehls went into the facility and finally granted them in-person visitation. And so there was the entire pod was really excited for about 2 hours. And then they realized they couldn't financially afford to get their families there for a mere 1 hour visit if they were lucky. And, because it was up to 4 people that could come, and it was family members. And, you're looking at the price of flights or even driving. These people are from all over the country. Then you have to have a place to stay. You have to have money for food. And so all these things. So we launched Operation Love Wins.
Hotels.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then
now, where is this? Where is the pod, the Patriot Pod?
In Washington, D.C.
In DC, okay.
Yes.
In the DC Gulag.
Yes, the DC Gulag. That's what it's famously known for. And so we launched Operation Love Wins, where we asked the public to step up to the plate and help monetary, travel rewards, whatever it might have been. And so we've been able to fund over 30 families to go visit their loved ones, to not have to worry about if they're going to pay their mortgage or their card note or how they're going to get money for their kids' school, because they had to pay, $2,500 for a family of 4 to go see their loved one. And so that's a major thing that we've done. And then after we launched that, we realized there was even a bigger need. And so we launched a nonprofit foundation called Stand in the Gap. We say those individuals stood for us on January 6th, and it's time for the general public to stand for them. And so through that, our main 2 things, it's very long term. what we want to do. We don't want this to go away after January 6th because this is a systematic problem across the board. It's not just prison reform, it's justice reform as a whole. And so we don't want this to go away. We want to make true change, but our initial focus is January 6th defendants. And as we've talked about with the 99.6 conviction rate, doesn't matter what kind of attorney you have. These people were told, go get a really good defense attorney, and it just doesn't matter. You can pay $100,000 and you're getting nowhere. And then they're sentenced, to these crazy sentences, 7, 10, 15, 22 years. And they don't have any money for appellant lawyers anymore because they sold their houses, their cars, their life savings were spent on defense attorneys that got them convicted because they're going up against the system. And so now our main two focus is the visitation, because that's immediate need that we feel like they need to be involved with their families. But then on the flip side is the appellant lawyers, getting them good attorneys to take this to the second highest court in the land, which is the circuit court. And then I truly believe some of these cases could go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Excellent. Well, and that's what, I mean, you've heard the stories about some of these, the grifters that come out and trying to raise this money and ends up going nowhere. So it's good to know that there's good foundations that people can donate to, and the money goes to the right place. And you're right. Yeah, it's about the visitation for the families, because that's the other thing we're pointing out. These are normal, everyday American people that have been in these DC gulags for 2.5 years, like you said, with horrible living conditions, horrible food, and can't see their family. And, you're standing by your husband. We had Jennifer Morshell on with David Morshell. She and, their 3 kids are standing by him. The DOJ and the feds and the government want to drive that wedge in so hard against the family and against the rest of the American people. And, that's why we're also trying to show that the family units can get stronger through this. They just sometimes need a little help. We'll put the link to both of those, Stand in the Gap and the other one you mentioned, in the description of this video. Anybody watching who wants to donate, please go down to the description and donate. And hopefully we can reunite some family and get some visitation and help with those legal battles. And it goes to actually fight those legal battles.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. There have been a lot of foundations that have come about, or organizations pop up here and there. And there are specific needs that some of them are meeting. And there are some that are just simply trying to grift off of this. And I think that's the thing. I've been in this for 2.5 years. There's no money in this. The money that we make goes directly to these families. We've not taken a dime from Operation Love Wins because we've been blessed financially to be able to take care of my husband. But there are families out there who have absolutely been devastated. They've lost their homes, they've lost their cars, their businesses. And so the question I get asked a lot is, how can the average American help? And so what we launched through Stand in the Gap is Give 5, Find 5. And we're simply asking the American people to give $5 a month and find 5 other people to do the same, because we understand the economy, that people are struggling to get groceries, take their kids out and do something fun because of the regime that's in place right now. But anybody could give $5 a month and find 5 people to do the same. And if we could get that to, 1,000, 10,000, $100,000, or 100,000 people to do $5 a month, this would literally change the lives of these January 6th defendants that, I know from my husband being in there, we went from a double income to a single income overnight. Was not prepared for that. We went from, putting money away to having to spend money to clothe him and feed him, and then visitation. Every phone call he makes, every message he sends on the tablet, anytime he chooses to watch a movie to entertain himself, we are paying for that as a family. And so they feel such a burden on their family, because not only are they not contributing to their family financially anymore, they are now a burden to their family, whether it's $500 up to $1,500 a month. And so we want to come in and take that burden away from the families and say, not only is your loved one going to be taken care of on the inside, but we're going to do what we can to take care of you on the inside. Again, our motto is they stood for us, and it's time that we stand for them.
Definitely. Well, we applaud you for what you're trying to do, standing by your family and trying to make it right. And folks, that's what when we say get loud locally, that's part of it too, is helping the community in any way that we can. Sarah, hang out with us a little bit longer. We're going to go on our music segment break and then come back with our Patriot and Trader of the Week. And folks, if you are enjoying this show, give it a like and subscribe on wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify. That's what helps get the word out with this podcast so that Sarah can get the word out with everything else. And get loud locally and be a conversation starter. You know, this right here, the mugshot heard around the world and war, you can be a conversation starter and talk about it. Don't be silent anymore, because silence gets you nowhere. It gets
silence is complicity.
Yes, and get loud locally with Freedom Cow right there. You can get a Freedom Cow shirt and use that QR code right there, or use the link down in the description to go check out the Freedom Chronicles.
You just gotta love Freedom Cow.
You love Freedom Cow. It's perfect.
He's so cute.
It's so cute. Exactly. So enjoy this video. This was from a couple weeks ago. This is my band, Mike Imbasciani's Blues Rockers with One Way Out.
Lord, I just came around the door.
There you go. A little One Way Out Allman Brothers for you. So that will bring us to our Patriot and Traitor of the Week. Sarah, you're our guest, so do you have a Patriot of the Week?
I would have to say after today, I am very hopeful that Mike Johnson will be our patriot that comes in and does what he truly says that he's going to do. One of the first things he said was release the January 6 tapes, and that'll be a huge thing. I think they need to look at the failures of Kevin McCarthy, and that's where they need to start. The things that McCarthy promised, that's where Mr. Johnson needs to start. And they need to tell the congressional members, hey, listen, you just need to plan to be here all weekend. We have to go to work. We've been off for the last 3 weeks going back and forth. They have a lot of work that they need to be done. And especially, that having control of the House, they control the wallets and the purses of all of these 3-letter agencies. They need to go through and make the right appropriations bill and do it correctly. As they say, they've been doing it wrong, unlawfully for so long. They need to go through and break this system and truly rebuild it. And they need to be reminded that they work for the people. So I really hope, fingers crossed, that he can be our patriot that we need.
I hope so too. That would be great. And yeah, of course, picture number 15, Ben. They were getting a little desperate. The Republican Party, they placed the House Speaker job over on ZipRecruiter. So hoping to get somebody to come out. Of course, Babylon Bee just posted, smoke rises over Capitol, indicating Congress has resumed setting taxpayers' money on fire. Yes. So hopefully the spending that they do is single issue bills so that at least we know where the money is going. Ken, who is your Patriot of the Week?
Well, she stole it. She stole mine.
Pick somebody else. Who you got?
Pick somebody. Well, okay, President Trump. Look what he's dealing with here.
I know.
This judge getting him on the stand, slapping him with a $10,000 fine. If you break the gag order one more time, it's gonna be worse.
Yeah. Okay.
So just putting up with that. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Just putting up with that. Still the Patriot.
Yep, still a Patriot.
Forever the Patriot.
Forever the Patriot. My Patriot of the Week, I'm going to give it to Matt Gaetz because we wouldn't be toss, here. Yeah. We wouldn't be here without Matt Gaetz. And there was some great tweets that have come out, but it was him and everybody. Yeah. And you, of course, had some of the weak rhinos going, oh, this is inducing the chaos. It's absolute chaos.
What I loved was, you didn't have a plan. You didn't have a plan. Yeah, he did. Jordan was the plan. Yeah. It was a darn good plan, too. It was the losers.
I recommend people watch Bannon's War Room from this morning. Yeah. And he interviewed Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz pretty much said, no, it's not me. It was Kevin McCarthy who was trying to have all these deals. He's the one who made
the promises and didn't keep any of them.
Yeah. So thank you, Matt Gaetz, for showing who the Republicans truly are, which they suck, just like the Democrats. But the Democrats at least don't lie to your face over and over and over again. So Matt Gaetz, again, shining the light. And now we have a new speaker.
Yeah.
So we shall see.
Hope he's worth the cost.
Exactly. Sarah, who's your traitor of the week?
That's such a good question, too, because there's so many people that I can think of, not only on a personal level, but a professional level as well. But, I think if we were to start, from the top, I think I would probably choose Barack Obama because I believe that's who's running the country right now while Biden's on his, 300th day of vacation this year. And, I believe a lot of this started with him in regards to the 16 years with Hillary Clinton coming behind him. And while I know there's people higher up than him that's pulling the strings as well, I do believe he is the face for the deep state and what is happening in Washington, D.C. So he would be my traitor.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, we wouldn't be in this predicament without him, and even Bush before him. It's just been that continuous cycle of insanity, of deep state, of they were supposed to win. Hillary was supposed to win, and they got so cocky in their arrogance that they just took the mask completely off and didn't care, the basket of deplorables and all of that, and they just pushed forward, and now they can't put it back. So now they're desperately trying so hard to grasp onto that power, and it's not working anymore.
No.
People are waking up.
Yes.
Ken, who is your trader of the week?
Well, it's our 100th episode, so
Yes.
I thought I'd lighten the load here. And Sarah, didn't know you were going to be on the show. Sorry that I have to subject you to this. But my trader would have to be a Maxim Magazine Australia.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Ben, if you can throw that up. They posted the Hot 100, the hottest 100 women in Australia for Maxim Magazine. Coming in at number 92
was a dude.
Was a dude.
Yes,
really, and it's a very disturbing photo of a dude
as a woman,
and it's not a good look. It's not a good look.
It's really
what did Jason describe it as? It looked like Hulk Hogan.
Oh yeah, without the
mustache. So again, that's my Maxim. I mean,
that's
really,
a good trader,
culture, Aussie culture. What are they've become traitors to their own people, as our government has to us.
Yes,
it's disturbing all over the world. We'll put it on the front.
Yeah. So I'll also keep it going. My trader will it could go so many different ways. It really could. It really could.
Well, you didn't prep either?
I did, but it's just so many options you could pick from. I'll give it
Dana White.
Yeah, Dana White. Yeah, UFC. That's what I'm going to go with. The UFC here, who have decided to take the partnership with Bud Light, because Bud Light has tried so hard to come back. And they tried it with Harley Davidson, and all that did was make people hate Harley Davidson. And now they want to ruin it in the octagon by having grown, very ripped, shredded men wearing very short shorts with a Bud Light logo across their butt. Well, I don't think that's going to help Bud Light
Dana
much.
White just showed what his number is for whoring himself out, and it's $100 million.
Yes, that is true. So, of course, we have picture number 10, please, Ben. We have the Dude of the Year. Don't forget, Dylan. And so Dylan Mulvaney's tied into all of this. Dylan Mulvaney was named UK Magazine's Woman of the Year. So, therefore, Babylon Bee, of course, came out and gave Dylan Mulvaney the Man of the Year, as they've done what got them banned from Twitter last year from when Rachel Levine was the Man of the Year.
Man, it didn't take long for us to start circling the drain, did it?
No, that's for sure. So, Sarah, once again, tell us a little bit more about what people can do to reach out, the realj6.com. And there's Shane Jenkins on here. Is he the one who has kind of started that? Kind of tell us a little bit about what he's dealing with as well.
Yeah, so he's also a January 6th defendant that was being held in the DC Gulag. He's still there. He went to trial back in March. A jury trial, was found guilty of all of his crimes, and he was just sentenced to 84 months. And so he will be leaving the Gulag soon and going to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. He has a very interesting background and kind of where all the inspiration came from in regards to stand in the gap. He was what somebody might call a career criminal growing up. He had a very dysfunctional family life and just went and tried to fill the void with alcohol, drugs, and women. And during his last incarceration, he came across a group called Charm Prison Ministries out of Houston, Texas. And they came in for the day and played basketball with them, brought them food, and really just gave them a glimpse into the outside world. And then they went for chapel after that, and he heard the message of God, and he just heard Jesus say, you're my son. And that was something that was a big void in his heart growing up, was not having that father figure, and doing things that he knew he shouldn't have done, but was, trying to fill the void in his heart. And so he had completely turned his life around, had gotten out on parole, was working through the Charm Prison Ministries, was working with the young men in the communities to be upstanding pillars, even if they didn't have fathers or whatever might have been going on in their home, just giving them love and attention that he never had growing up. And unfortunately, he found himself at January 6th and found himself right back into the system that failed him so many times before, but he has just such a different perspective now because he's lost so much time of his life that he really wants to give back to the community. He knows how broken the system is from being incarcerated previously. You know, a lot of these January 6 defendants, although we don't think it should be the 4 seasons, it's definitely not what you think a jail would be either. But this is the stuff that they've had to endure. So he really brings a unique, godly perspective to everything that's going on in the January 6 community. But that's why he wants it to outlive what he is doing for January 6th, because there are so many people affected by the incarceration system in America.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and it just shows, you know, turn to God too, and have keep the faith, and you got to push forward, and a lot of prayer. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you see with people, you know, that are truly transformed by God's love, right? And those are the people that go out and completely turn their life around, that they don't even look like the same person that they were prior to all of this. And they do good for their community. And that's what I hope a lot of the January 6 defendants do, that they come out, whether it's on a local level, working with kids in the community, teaching them the true history of America, or whether they run for some sort of government or run an organization. I do believe, as terrible as this situation has been, there can be a lot of good that comes from it.
How has this affected you and your kids?
Thank goodness I don't have any kids, right? I say that, but it's a double-edged sword, because we were married 5 years when literally 2 weeks after our 5-year anniversary, they came and took him. And he's been gone for over 2 years now. And so it's like what we think our life would have looked like, right? Would have been, okay, build a career for 5 years, and then you're stable enough. We had a home that was built specifically, you know, in the minds of having a family. And all of that is gone now, unfortunately.
What one of the things I noticed was they have pushed out the sentencing to Leap Day, you know, February 29th, 2024.
Leap.
It's ridiculous. What is the speculation of, because it was 5 convictions, right? What are you what's the best case scenario that he's looking at?
Best case scenario is time served. I know that that's probably what our attorney is going to go fight for, because at that point he'll be there for going on 31 months. And so even for the crimes that he was convicted on, you know, that is a doable sentence, I guess, for some people. I don't know what the government's going to come back and ask for, or the types of enhancements that they are asking for, which of course adds more time. We'll probably know, I would assume, within the next month what time frame they are looking at and what they are going to argue when we get to sentencing.
Yeah. Well, again, if he has to sit in this gulag for, you know, more months until the sentencing finally happens, and then, you know, until he actually has to show up, because even David Morshell, he was just on house arrest and he was an oath keeper, you know, and that's how they're treating each case, whether they throw you in the DC gulag or, you know, the lectern guy got house arrest and he was finally off of parole or whatever. That it's ludicrous. It's like just some DOJ official goes, oh, well, this guy, we'll just throw him in and eventually we'll get to his trial. It's unbelievable.
They don't.
It is, and you can tell in the when we were sitting in trial, you could tell the 2 prosecutors that were sitting at that table. Not only they played off of each other, but it's almost like they weren't even the ones calling the shots. It seemed to be that they were the ones that were the puppets that had to put their name and their life on the line for this. I mean, I can promise you that they agree with everything that they are doing. You can just tell in their demeanors, but it is not them that are calling the shots in these trials.
Just following orders. That's what it comes down to.
We are only following the orders.
We just talked to you know, the FBI whistleblower Stephen Friend on Ken's radio program the other day, and we want to get him on the podcast soon, hopefully, as well. But it's the same thing of yeah, there are good people in the FBI still, but how many of them say, oh, just following orders, I'm just doing what I'm told? You know, it's wrong. And it takes more people to stand up
to them. Yeah. It's sad.
I want to dive in a little more on the speaker here. What for the January 6th point of view, for now we have a speaker. Yes, we want the January 6th tapes released, but for you, with what your heart and soul is fighting for with the real J6, and what else do you want to see now from Congress moving forward?
I want true investigations into that day. I want an investigation into Michael Byrd with the use of force continuum that he never used, that he just shot an unarmed woman who lost her life. I want an investigation into Lila Morris of why she acted the way that she did. I understand, being a law enforcement officer wife, that the first thing that you do when you're in a crowd like that is you try to disperse the crowd. However, they didn't use the tactics that they could have used to disperse the crowd peacefully. But you certainly go against all of your training when you beat an unarmed, unconscious woman that's lying on the ground and don't even go to give her aid. It's just complete hatred that came from that. I want investigation into the coroner's office that cremated these people's bodies without them being able to have an investigation from their families. I want to know why they lied to their families. I want an investigation into the Capitol Police. Why do they operate with impunity, that everything they do is internal, that they don't have to bring any external agencies out to review the cases that they have? There's a lot. When we talk about investigating January 6th, there's so many layers of it, right? Looking into Mayor Bowser and Nancy Pelosi. Why did they deny National Guard? And it's interesting if you read in Kash Patel's. Yes, they absolutely, and I truly believe they wanted it to be worse than what it was. They wanted it to be a bloodbath that day. That's why they shot Ashley Babbitt and murdered Roseanne Boylan. They wanted it. They wanted outrage from the Patriots, and they just simply didn't get it. They did. If you read in Kash Patel's book, Government Gangsters, he talks about January 6th in there and how they had approved National Guard to be there. And on January 6th, she calls him, and Nancy Pelosi calls Kash Patel and says, "Where's my National Guard?" And he's like, "Nancy, we can't get people here this quickly. These are, teachers and law enforcement officers and, the normal average citizens. We can't get them here that quickly." And she said, "Well, roll the tanks down Pennsylvania Avenue." And he was like, "We're absolutely not rolling the tanks down Pennsylvania Avenue." And she said, "Well, you need to do something because I need to feed my congressional members and get the cafeteria back opened." So if she was so afraid of what was happening on January 6th, that it was an insurrection, all she cared about was reopening the cafeteria so her congressional members could eat. These are the things that need to be investigated, why things were said, why the police let these people in. I truly believe they were set up to. But this is almost like you look at the investigation as an onion. There are so many. Nobody talks about the pipe bombs anymore. Who laid those out? Why is that not? Right. Yeah, there's so many aspects of January 6th that need to be investigated.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and hopefully the speaker will do it. Just looking at, and I know, Ken, you scoff, but what are you going to do? It's now the hand that we're dealt.
Not to scoff these days.
I try not to scoff, but I mean, just taking a look at Mike Johnson's life and political record. This tweet came out.
He's got a very high Liberty score.
He does. Well, and we have this other picture. He's good when Bill Kristol doesn't like him. Picture number 7, please.
Exactly. I love him already.
Yes. FYI, Mike Johnson this is his Ukraine report card. Very poor F.
Oh, I love the guy.
And so Republicans for Ukraine. And of course, Adam Schiff gave him one of the best endorsements. Picture number 9, please. You might be Googling who Mike Johnson is this morning. Let me make it simple. Johnson is a hard-right, pro-Trump, leading election denier in the House. Sadly, this is what passes for speaker material. Well, yes, because that's what we want.
Hey,
that's a good thing.
All right.
Exactly.
I'm willing to give the guy a shot.
And something very interesting, picture number 16, there was this picture of Johnson with the entire GOP there, standing in the room, and they made the media come to them. He said, "I'm not going out there. They can come in here." And what did he do? First thing he did, said, "We need to have a prayer right now." And they prayed. And it was killing every single member of the media and every single rhino standing in that crowd. Because when you look at all of those GOP members, look at their faces. Remember these people. A lot of these are no-name Congress people all across the country that don't stand for freedom. So we're coming up on an election. People, get loud locally in your area.
Some of them should be primaried.
Some of them need to be primaried and get rid of these fake people.
Look what we got here. Louisiana. They becoming the center of the GOP now? They just turned it into a red state.
I know.
With their governor's election.
We applaud Scott Pressler for helping achieve that.
And now we got Mike Johnson. This is nice.
It's good stuff. And
you take a win where you can get it.
Exactly. He's pro-life. He has consistently voted against Ukraine Ukraine aid except for the very first bill. He supported Trump's 2017 executive order prohibiting immigration from 7 Muslim countries. He has a good track record so far.
All right.
He voted against certifying Biden's election. His mentor is Jim Jordan. Okay. And he voted for him for speaker. So we'll see what happens.
All right.
We'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
He's better than Emmers.
Yeah, exactly. Sarah, where can people find you? And again, give us all the information of how people can reach out. And
Yeah, for sure. I'm on Twitter, the real J6 Sarah. You can find me on there. Also, Linktree/Sarah McAbee. You can find all of my information on that. Also, therealj6.com and standinthegap.foundation. The initiative that we're pushing right now is the Give 5, Find 5. That is what you're going to see your money go to, that everybody can afford, the American public can afford and see. Just, you think it's such a small donation, but you think about when that money multiplies. If we could find, 100,000 patriots to do that a month, I mean, you're talking about lives truly changed in the January 6th community, and then pushing it forward to change Americans' lives across the board. Because we always say, if they're coming after people like us, just average citizens. My husband's a law enforcement officer. I worked in corporate America. We lived this white picket fence life, right? But because we challenged the election and he upheld his oath of office on January 6th, we are being persecuted for that. But they aren't going to get to us, and we know that. They can take everything for us, but they won't steal our joy and they won't steal our fight. And so we're fighting for every American in this.
Exactly.
God bless you.
Well, thank you, Sarah. We'll continue to pray for you and for your husband and for every J6 prisoner that is having to deal with this and every family that is affected. Folks, thank you for watching. Again, go check the link down in the description. We'll have a link to Sarah's link tree.
Ben gonna put together like a little, memories, and then we start out the very first show.
Yeah, we should. Show number 1.
Well,
you saw there's the new intro.
Corners of my mind.
This was episode 100. So thank you, everybody, for continuing to be on this journey with us. It's about getting the word out there. Get loud locally. Episode 100. There was a new intro. Did you notice? Go back, rewatch it, and you'll see some of those memories. Yeah, Ken never watched it, so it's okay. But Sarah, thank you. Link in the description down below for all of Sarah's information. Again, check it out. Operation Love Wins and Stand in the Gap. Get loud locally, folks. It's what it takes. Hop on over to Locals. Ken and I will be covering a couple of the stories that we just don't get to in the bottom of the stack, so check that out. And from the bunker,
Freedom Cow.
You're watching Conservative Television of America, working hard to stick socialism where the sun don't shine.